So hello and welcome to Salopcast, episode 5 of the season. And Glyn, you're back.
Yes.
We're back. We're back together doing a podcast.
Shocking, I know. We've been moonlighting with our other friends and colleagues in podcasting, haven't we? And it's nice to actually be back with you, Ollie, because as I say, you missed the sort of first bit of the season, didn't you, with your honeymoon? I've obviously been away on holiday for 2 weeks and missed sort of the last 4 games, I think it was. And it's been a bit of an interesting start to the season and one we haven't really had a chance to catch up with. We've been talking on sort of Facebook Messenger quite a lot, haven't we, catching up with things, but it'd be good to put some thoughts together now.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It was nearly mid-July last time we did a podcast together, which is quite funny now considering we're almost into September. So yeah, it just shows. But thanks to Nathan, to Chris, and your brother Mike for stepping in and helping us with the podcast. It's good to get different views on, and I'm sure those guys will be on the podcast in the season as well.
We will do, yeah. We'll definitely have them on it, and some other people as well from last season, and I've got a few new names as well over sort of talking to at games. It'd be quite interesting coming on. So again, we'll be casting that net wide for people's views as the season goes on, which is always fantastic. But I guess before we get into the game, really, I say I've been away on holiday, Ollie, so it's quite a weird one. We're recording episode 5, and we're 6 games into the season. I still haven't been to an actual competitive game yet this season, which is a bit weird. And I've watched the one game, the Doncaster Rovers game on iFollow, and I'll come to talk about iFollow in a little bit. But it's interesting because I've got a very different view, and it's probably worth bringing this up at the start before we get into it, that I can kind of... I've seen one game on iFollow, but obviously that's not quite the same as being there. You've obviously been to a few more live games than me, but not too many. And so my view and my discussion points are very much based on, what it looks like in terms of results at the moment, because I haven't been seeing the performances, and I have been getting feedback from other people and yourself and my brother and stuff. So kind of a mismatch at the moment. So I'm looking forward to doing this podcast, but I'm more looking forward to actually going to a game on Saturday. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this season develops now.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I've been to quite a few now. So I've been to quite a few at home. I watched the Doncaster one, and also went to Luton as well. So, but yeah, it's interesting how you get your different perspectives, and obviously in the modern world of football, you get so many inputs into kind of your opinion and what you see, and obviously you got the radio, you got the TV, you got Twitter, Facebook. So yeah, there's loads of ways to kind of get your input. So yeah, I guess we probably should just jump into the Doncaster game.
Shropshire side looking for the lead here early on. Edmund can't get it, but McMenamin can. The first goal of the game, and it's gone Shrewsbury's way.
So the first game this week was Shrewsbury Town at Doncaster at the Keepmoat, which was 0-0. So not very much to say in terms of goal scorers because there wasn't any. But a 0-0 game. Got us our second point on the board, which was quite helpful because obviously we were stuck on 1 point, so it was nice to move off onto that second point. But wasn't quite the win I think most Town fans were hoping for, unfortunately. So there we go. We should just reflect really, I suppose, in terms of stats. Doncaster started very well. They'd won 3-3 and then lost one, so they'd obviously won 3 or 4 altogether. So it was going to be a tough place to go. And it was the first Football League game broadcast online in the UK via sort of the iFollow system. So it wasn't a game we could watch on TV, but it was an opportunity for people who were in Shrewsbury to actually use iFollow to follow a Shrewsbury Town away game, which was an interesting experience, I know, for a lot of Shrewsbury Town fans. And as I mentioned at the start in the intro, I obviously watched it on iFollow, Ollie, but I watched it in Austria when I was on holiday, and it was only €6 for me, so that felt like a bargain, to be honest with you. But I think you watched it using iFollow as well, didn't you? And you were using it from England, weren't you?
Yeah, I used it. I was watching it for England, and I had it up on my TV, which was cool. The only thing that was a bit odd, so it felt like I was also just watching a normal game. The only thing that was different, so we had the BBC Shropshire commentary, which was good, which I think you probably had as well. And it was in time as well. I was a little bit concerned it might not be in time, but it was. The only thing that was really weird is there's no replays.
No.
So every time your natural reaction was right. Okay, watch the replay. Oh yeah, there isn't one, and that caught me out quite a few times. Yeah,
you had to be very focused, didn't you, Ollie? You couldn't be looking at your phone and getting distracted. You actually had to watch the game, which is good actually, because it's what it's supposed to be like, isn't it? But I mean, it's probably just worth reflecting on iFollow, Ollie, because it's my very first experience of having watched a game live like that, and I have to say there was a lot of sort of negative things I was reading about other fans who'd had problems from other football clubs about the quality or the delay or even just the streams not working. I logged into it. I paid me €6. It was working straight away. Game came on about 3 or 4 minutes before kick-off with the Radio Shropshire commentary. Perfect. I thought the audio quality was incredibly high, and the video quality was really high as well. And I guess it depends on the internet connection. I think I had a very good one out in Austria, but I have to say the whole service to me for €6 felt like a decent amount of money to be paying for the service you were getting. I don't know how you feel about paying £10 per match in England. Do you think that's a fair amount, Ollie?
Yeah, so I pay £45 a year for iFollow, and I watch all the extended highlights. I can watch the full games back. So last season, when there were some epic games, I did watch those back.
You did,
yeah. That's some recommendations. £10 seemed like a bit much, but it was a one-off.
Yeah.
I guess if they start, it's a bit like the boxing, isn't it? You don't mind paying £20 once in a while for a big, massive fight, but would you start doing it every single week? No. So £10 in the context that it's the first time and it doesn't happen at the moment very often, that's fine. Start charging me £10 a week for every away game. I'm not sure I'd pay that.
No.
And obviously, it was fun. I saw a few people. I saw Rachel from the supporters parliament posting. She got all her snacks out and all that kind of stuff. So it's quite fun to do it at home. But yeah, I'm not sure I'd pay £10 every single week.
Yeah, I mean, it see how it develops. I'm quite interested to see how it affects away attendances in the Football League as it goes on, and especially in League One and Two, where we've not had that facility before. I'll be very interested to see what happens.
Well, yeah, they had. They were just shy. I'm not sure what their average attendance is. We probably should have checked, but it was 6,900, which is a good fun. And I tell you what, we're just talking of fans. Every single time there was an extended highlight during doing this prep, you could hear the Shrewsbury fans. Shrewsbury fans have kept their voice from last season.
Fantastic, yeah, it's been brilliant. I did notice that as well watching the highlights. But so there we go. So obviously we were getting the news through Twitter in terms of the team selection, Ollie, and the various means that we get this sort of stuff now. And I'll run through the team really. We can quickly talk about who played, but Coleman's starting in goal and looks like he's our number one now as it's established. The back four was Bolton, Waterfall, Sadler and Haynes, so I think that was the same from the previous game. And then the midfield three...
Correct.
Yeah, midfield three were Grant, Laurent and Doherty, and then Wally and Gilead on the wings, and the Shop retained his place, although I listened to you and Nathan on the last podcast and you had a bit of a discussion on the Shop and were wondering whether he would or wouldn't keep his place, but were you surprised to see him keep his place?
Yes, I was surprised.
Yeah.
I was surprised about that, and it is a bit of a concern, that position. But yeah, he did have a good game, which we'll come on to. But obviously, you're judged on one thing and one thing alone. He didn't score.
Well, particularly for strikers, that is the one main thing, isn't it? But considering he hasn't scored yet this season, not ideal for the Shop. But he certainly had chances in this game, as you said, didn't you? So, but I mean, that team, looks how it's developed this season. Well, I've been away, Ollie, and again, you can probably add a little bit more to this. Looks like the first choice team, doesn't it? We've probably got Norwood, haven't we? That's maybe someone who could feature in there. He's obviously our record goal scorer, but quite where he fits into that midfield three now, I'm not quite sure.
Record signing,
record goal scorer. Yeah, he hasn't scored yet. Record signing. So you've obviously got him as the other one that's pushing more than anyone, and probably Beckles as well. But at the moment,
and you think Angle as well would be the main striker, wouldn't you? So I think the team that started against Luton,
probably
that team plus Angle's possibly our number one.
But it's settling down, isn't it, for sure?
Yeah, it is definitely. It's definitely. So going into the Doncaster game, I think it's fair to say that they started the game better than us.
Yes.
So Doncaster kind of dominated for the first 15 minutes, and they really focused on our left-hand flank. Sometimes when you're watching a game, you kind of get a different perspective when you watch extended highlights, but it was obviously very concentrated down our left.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether that was just coincidence, but there was definitely a lot of joy coming down the left for them. And there was that. Yeah, there's several crosses. They had a corner. And there's that very weak penalty claim against Sadler when the ball hit his arm. For me, that was never a pen. What was your thoughts?
No, ball's hand, but like completely in accidental, and his hand wasn't in what they call it's an unnatural position, isn't it? That's what we get told. Now. It wasn't in an unnatural position. Never a penalty, that one. But going back to that left-hand side, I think I'd be more inclined to say I think it was a definite tactic that Doncaster played. They definitely seem to have focused on a weakness down the left, which I think a few fans had picked up in previous games as well, because you've obviously got Haynes settling into the team and Gilead as well, obviously offering the cover, but a very attacking player. So it made sense for them to go down their way, whereas you've got Bolton on the other wing and Wally, an experienced pro. So obviously there's a little bit more there for them to probably break down. And I think it was
the understanding between them
exactly.
after playing a whole season together.
Exactly, yeah. So it made sense for Doncaster to do that, and I think it did work well for them. They looked quite susceptible to the attacks at times. I feel like Haynes lets people get crosses in a little bit too easy. He's not quite as good at stopping the cross as maybe Junior was last season, and Beckles when he was playing there, particularly with his physicality. So, but each player has different things to offer. I thought that Haynes was good going forward in the second half, so it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? I guess it depends on what the manager wants out of him.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's definitely improved at that part as the games have gone on.
Okay.
He's got a little bit sharper and a little bit quicker, but yeah, it's definitely something that I would put in my my areas of concern box.
Yeah, it was interesting though, because obviously everyone had been talking about we've had these good performances, and we've been deserving to get more out of games than we've got. And I watched the first 15 minutes of the Doncaster game, and to be honest with you, I was like, what? I couldn't see it, because obviously we did struggle in that 15 minutes, but I think as the game went on I could see why people were talking about how well we were playing, and again by the end I think you had a very different view of what the game was like and how well we played. But yeah, I did have a worry 15 minutes in that I thought everyone was talking madness.
So then it was quite a controversial. There's been quite a bit of controversial and a bit of interesting points of Shrewsbury games the last week, so Salop started to come into the game, and one of our first major attacks has Wally in the box, and I think it's fair to say this was a penalty.
Well, Darren Drysdale, wasn't it? The man, the myth, the legend that is Darren Drysdale, who always seems to have a little bit of a sort of controversial game against us. Although we had done better in the last few games, if I remember rightly. He did send off one of our players in his last game for us, but I think he'd had a run of 4 or 5 games where he'd been quite anonymous, so we were thinking we might have got through the worst of Drysdale. But he's definitely a referee with a very poor reputation in League 1, League 2. You find a lot of other fans are sort of very negative about him, and as this developed, and obviously we'll come to talk about the penalty chance, but it got a bit more wide press amongst sort of League 1, League 2 fans, and it was very interesting that it wasn't just Shrewsbury Town fans that were very negative about him as a referee. But let's be brutally honest about it, it was the stonewallest of stonewall penalties, and it was interesting that the guys on the Radio Shropshire commentary were a little bit unsure at first, thinking that someone might have got a toe on the ball, and obviously the people with the benefit of the sort of ability to scroll back and watch the replay on iFollow, as soon as they saw it back, I think someone made a gif of it, and it went round.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it went very, very far, and everyone was like, Stonewall, Stonewall.
I can't remember if it was someone called Absolute Salop or someone like that did it.
Yeah.
He did it quite quickly. So Lewis Cox, I had my iPad in front of me. I was watching Dude on Twitter as well. And obviously Mark Elliott and Stuart Dunn weren't sure. Lewis Cox wasn't sure either, who had the same angle. But then that guy made that GIF, and that went flying round, and it was clear that it was. They even mentioned that actually on Shropshire Radio, didn't they? That GIF. But it was a clear Stonewall penalty, and kind of just sums up the luck we've been having so far this season.
It wasn't great, was it? And generally was. I think you mentioned it. Then it was actually the first proper attack we had where we got into the box and looked dangerous, and we should have got some reward for it really, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. And I don't think I'm not too sure whether he did put it in our notes to this agenda, but they had a very, very good penalty shout in the second half as well, and he didn't give it to them either, because I honestly felt like it was like he must have realised at half time he'd made a tremendous balls up with it. Maybe the liner would add a word, and he didn't give them a penalty in the second half as well. So Doncaster were equally livid for his bad penalty calls.
I don't know. I watched that one back a few times. For me, the one where the winger ran into Grant. For me that wasn't a penalty.
You reckon? No,
he didn't even move. He just kind of ran into him. And I didn't think that was a penalty at all. I thought that was quite a good decision.
It would have been brilliant if he did give it. We'd have been even more outraged, wouldn't we, then in that case? But
it would have been outraged. But you're right. It was a contentious issue, and the Doncaster fans were quite quick to jump on the referee's back. Maybe they didn't even know who he was as well.
Yeah, the Doncaster fans had a view that the referee gave us everything in the game other than that penalty, which was quite interesting. So
it is funny, isn't it?
Yeah, they weren't impressed with him either.
It's funny how that game last season, when I was sitting next to Dave Mateus at against Bradford, and I was on Twitter going, "That was a foul," and you go, "No, it's not," which is quite funny. So, end of this half, they had a few good long range efforts, good palm away from Coleman. Wally had that cross where you'd have hoped that the shot, I think a natural goal scorer, I'm being critical here, would have done a Gaza-esque dive for the ball, Euro 96, and he would dive for it, but he didn't, and he was so close to getting a toe on it.
He was on his heels a little bit, wasn't he? Just that little 2 milliseconds of anticipation that he doesn't quite have, unfortunately, and if he'd have had it, or if he'd have been able to read the play a little bit better, he was just going to slide in and score a tap-in, really, and, good chance, and just shows it's not really going for him, does it? That one step forward, if he'd have been, when the ball was played, he probably would have just tapped it in, but nope, didn't go for him, unfortunately. But that was probably one of the better chances we had in that half, other than the penalty we didn't get. But I think obviously most of our chances came in the second half, didn't they? That was probably the best for the first half. Yeah. But I was going to say, we did rely on Coleman. He made some very good saves in that half, and I think my overall view of the first half, the struggles we had to get out really, and some of the defensive issues we had, I thought Coleman was really good. So that was my main benefit and my main positive to come out the first half. He looked solid.
Yeah, I think our defensive discipline is quite good. We've got quite a bit of shape most of the time, and yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. But yeah, Coleman's definitely kind of settled into the team.
Yeah, he looked good.
So so that was the first half. Not the best first half we've had all season. So second half, it was quite awkward. That Wilkes, their right winger, did both Gilliatt and Hayes at the same time.
Yeah,
it was
great.
Like, oh, a kind of hands, very much a kind of hands, over your face kind of moment. It was quite embarrassing. Fortunately, nothing came of it. Actually, that was the penalty shout when he ran into Grant straight after that. So luckily, nothing came from that.
That Wilkes was good. I thought he had them on toast, to be honest with you, most of the game, to be brutally honest. He was quite quick, he's skillful, tricky winger, and he actually did a lot of good work in terms of put some really good balls in the box. And I think of all their players, he'd probably be the most disappointed they didn't win from the sort of output that he had in the game, really, because I thought he was a decent little player. But similar to us, really, when he did provide a cross, we didn't have the ability to finish it, and nor did they.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure. If you saw that on the agenda, I've put in a bit about their standout player, and I went for
I didn't see
Wilkes.
that.
Sorry.
We'll
so he's a strong winger forward, and he's on loan from Leeds United.
Oh, is he?
So he's a bit of a talent. Yeah. So he's something I think we should start doing, Glyn, is having because we often talk about Shrewsbury a lot, and let's start what I've thought would be a good idea is maybe we start having a standout player from the opposition. And so for this one, I thought it was Wilkes, and when I searched where he was from and I saw he was on loan from Leeds, that wasn't too much of a surprise.
No, I would agree with that. It's a good feature to have from now on, Ollie, and I would agree with that. If I was nominating one of their players who stood out to me, it was him as well. So yeah, he was unlucky to be on not on a winning side in some respects, but as the game developed, to be fair, he could also count himself lucky to be on a drawing side. So we did have a lot of good play and a lot of possession actually in the second half, and in terms of, for me again, watching this is my first sort of game watching them live. Really impressed with midfield three, and particularly Laurent, who I thought was a sparkling little player, to be honest with you. In terms of Ben Godfrey-esque, it looked a little bit like to me, but with probably a little bit more of an attacking instinct to him. He was good at chasing down and winning tackles and not being afraid to put his foot in there, but also I liked his passing range. Not quite as good as maybe a Nolan, but definitely solid, and really could see a sort of through ball every now and again. So of all the midfield three, I like them all really, but to me he stood out, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he develops.
Yeah, he had a solid game, didn't he, against Doncaster. For me, he's our kind of a go-go replacement, and it sounds a little bit foolhardy, but in some, obviously he hasn't maybe got the intelligence to go that subtleness because he's a bit younger. But yeah, he's definitely got the range, and he's, as you said, he's built like Godfrey. He's got that frame. So yeah, he looks like a good signing. And yeah, the midfield three, having Grant in there, Grant has made a huge difference.
Good.
So when Grant came into the Blackpool game, as we said with Nathan, that made a massive difference, and that balance kind of seems to have come into central midfield now, which is positive.
Yeah, balance is good. As I say, I think that Grant's obviously the sitter, isn't he, from having watched that game and from everything I'm told. So he's more of the direct or go-go replacement. But he looks like he's got maybe possibly a little bit more to him, I don't know. But Doherty as well, he looks like a proper player. He looks like an efficient passer of the ball. Again, another solid player that likes to put a foot in there, and I think probably of the three, maybe he's the one that's going to keep it ticking over whilst he lets the other two do their more specific role. So again, until I go and see a game and you see the wider pitch and see their work off the ball a little bit more, it's hard for me to judge, but certainly on the evidence of a TV televised type game like that, they looked, all three of them look solid.
Yeah, no, definitely. So then the game kind of like ebbed and flowed, and then we got to the 60th minute, and then Salop just went up a gear, put the turbos on.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had loads of chances then. So we a really good passing move from Town. Worley on the left wing. That's one thing that's noticeable in the ASCII era in terms of our flexibility and fluidity going forward. This is one where Worley crossed from the left and shot forced a save from the keeper.
Good save,
that was a good save. And then another good build-up from Town. Doherty's shot was blocked. He's not too shy to have a shot. The ball comes to Gilliatt, who crosses the ball, and the ball bounces out to the shop, who fires a goal, and the keeper makes a super save, diving to his feet.
Yeah, good.
That was a super save.
Yeah. Yeah, I said I thought on Twitter then I think the shop should definitely score, and I was a bit disappointed in him. I think I'm a little bit more agree with what other people have said. That was a good save, actually, to be fair. So I'll be a bit fairer on the shop for that one. But interesting for me, Wally looked really good, and I'm hearing reports that he seems to have got even better from last season, which is a good thing to hear, really, considering he was probably one of our go-to players last season. He certainly seems to be the main man in this squad at the moment in terms of taking on the responsibility of trying to get us out of this tight spot, and certainly his performances, I don't think anyone can criticise any of them across the first 6 games this season.
No, definitely not, and that's why obviously it was so contentious when Askey took him off. But he took him off because he was knackered. And he's been in my top 3 in every game that I've watched. So so he's doing really well. Wally, he seems to just carried on, and he almost seems to have more confidence, but he seems a bit more assured as well. So that's a positive.
Yes.
Again, Worley involved again. This is where Chop did that really good chest down and shot, but unfortunately was offside. But keeper saved it again. Super doing really well. A couple of other shots again, and then a really teasing ball from Donny, and no one gets a toe on it. So this is an attack from them, and it's from the left-hand side again.
Got into easy. Concern. Yeah, down the left.
It was really poor.
Again, we just didn't try and stop the cross, and as I say, I think it's one of my observations from the one game. I'll be interested to see if that continues, to be honest with you, but. It was interesting. I mean, one of the things I meant to mention at half-time was, the game really changed from 45 minutes onwards. I know we really went away after 65 minutes, but it was noticeable from basically kick-off in the second half, the game really changed. And, we give credit to Askey. I'm going to give him credit that whatever he said at half-time, whether he gave him a rocket or was just, a little tinker here with the formation we were playing in terms of maybe just sitting back a bit and attacking at the right times. Don't know whatever he did, but it seemed to work really well. And Doncaster went in on themselves. They seemed to panic a little bit, and their crowd got a little bit antsy from what I could tell. So, you got to credit Askey there. He didn't quite get the 3 points. He didn't quite get what he really, really wanted, and there are reasons for that we've talked about really in terms of the lack of quality in its finishing. But let's look at some positives there in this game particularly. I think he did well in his half-time talk. Yeah,
definitely. When you look at the XG map. Basically Doncaster in the second half hardly went up, so they ended up on 0.9. Shrewsbury was terrible in the first half, really low.
Bad.
Really poor in the first half. We didn't even get to 0.5, but then we ended the game 1.6 to their 0.9.
Okay.
So we absolutely so we really again it was the 4th game in the row where we'd had in the league where we had a much higher XG than the opposition. It just shows we're creating chances. But as you say, we're not taking them, and ultimately, football's about winning football games.
It is.
Which, we should have won. Really should have got 3 points here.
Yeah. So I mean, from watching the game in the second half, there was only one team really going to win it, other than that sort of flash across the box that they had. But we ratcheted the pressure up, and it's going to be another thing for me. I want to see is I'm really impressed with the midfield 3. I don't have a clue yet quite how many goals they've got in them. Do you know what I mean? They look like good players, and Wally's a good player, but he gets goals. Gilead looks like a good player. Will he get us goals? I don't know. So that's going to be an interesting thing that we can rely on a big target man up front. That's probably not going to be the shop on the evidence of those first few games. He just hasn't quite got it, unfortunately, for the bloke. He didn't play poorly in this game, but there were elements of his game off the ball and potentially in terms of his winning the ball and trying to bring other players into it that was 50-50 for me. He was all right at some bits. He wasn't at the other. I think I'm going to want to see what Angol and Holloway have got now going forward. I think I've had enough of the shot from last season and I haven't heard and seen that game. I think that for me, we've got to try someone else up there. But we can't just be penning everything on that one striker. We've got to say, Wally wants to join in. He wants to try and get goals. We need to see the other 4 players in midfield joining in. And that's going to be really key going forward as well.
Yeah, definitely. Again, using kind of your XG analysis from the experimental 361, Laurent keeps coming up in there in the XG numbers, and he needs to take his chances as well. We need our midfielders to start scoring, and obviously that was key to success last season. And also, the defenders picking up the odd goal from a corner or something like that as well. So everyone needs to start contributing. I
agree. I mean, that was our game really. To me, I'd sum it up by saying, in the context of the season, we hadn't won yet, so it would have been lovely to get that first win. But really, Doncaster away, Tuesday night, potentially always a little tricky game. A point there in the context of any other season would probably have been fine. So I think I wasn't really getting too worried about us not quite having won. And I'm starting to worry about it after Luton a little bit, but I think after Doncaster I wasn't ready to be too panicky about it. But overall, the performance level was there or thereabouts, creating enough chances, so there wasn't really too much to panic about after that one, was there, I suppose?
No, there wasn't. No, definitely not. So just kind of closing this game down quite quickly. Yep. Top 3, we actually went for the same.
Yeah.
So I'll just run through them.
Go on.
So we went for Laurent, Worley and Sadler. It's funny, we both went for the same thing. I don't think Laurent was superb, Worley was really good going forward, and Sadler was really short in defence and made absolutely no mistakes whatsoever. Yeah,
he did. Yeah, I'd say I think it was pretty easy to pick a top 3 there, and I'm not saying the rest of them played particularly poorly, but it was hard to sort of criticise Laurent and Wally's games, the way they played, and I think in terms of keeping a clean sheet at the back, I felt Sadler was back to his old role of marshalling and the centre-back and the defensive unit a bit more than Waterfall looked like he was doing. But again, I was only watching on TV. It'll be interesting to see live again how those two dovetail, because that's our new centre-back pairing by the look of it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I mentioned in the last pod. I feel really quite assured that we have a lot of talkers on the pitch.
Yeah.
To each other and also the ref, so hopefully that will stay us in good stead.
Cool.
So finally, what did the manager say? As we kind of alluded to, the game went on longer the better we went. We had the better chance of the game. You can't ask any more of the players. It's a difficult place. It's a good point, actually. Doncaster had started the season really well,
yep.
And he said this is the best team we've seen, and we should have beaten them. And then Stuart Dunn asked me about the big talking point, and as he said, it was a blatant penalty. And he said we keep making clear chances, but we're not converting, and obviously that's a concern.
It is. There we go. So that wasn't too much to panic about, but I think there's maybe a little bit more to get your teeth into at the next game, which was away at Luton, where we lost 3-2, having led twice. So, yeah, a little bit of a kick in the teeth, and certainly, I know you've mentioned in the agenda the phrase sucker punch, and it certainly felt like that, but we'll come to that. But yeah, we scored on 23, penalty through Sean Wally, then they got back in the game on 51 minutes through Grant. We went back ahead on it 66 minutes through Angol, which is an interesting goal. And then they scored 2 goals in 73 by Stacey and Elliot Lee on 76. So 2 quick goals back to back that really put the game beyond us. And there was penalty controversy and all sorts of other stuff going on, wasn't there? So yeah. Ollie, you went to this game. You were there, so you're going to be able to tell us a little bit more about this than me. I listened to it on the radio. You can't watch it on iFollow unless you've got a VPN, which I haven't quite sorted out. So yeah, what do we want to start with here? Stats, team selection?
Yeah, so let's start. I'll go through the stats. So Luton had won their first game of the season against Southend. Had come to this game. Okay. Before then, they'd drawn 1 and lost 2. And yeah, for Shrewsbury, no wins and only 1 goal. So yeah, not a good start to the season for Shrewsbury coming to this. So the team was exactly the same, but Angol started up front, which I think most people were pleased about. And I imagine, Glyn, obviously you were keeping an eye on this game as you always do. You were expected and you were quite pleased to see him start, I guess.
Yeah, I think having watched the game, I wouldn't have changed anything other than Angol, to be honest with you. I thought we were quite solid. I mean, I might have been tempted to bring Beckles back in for Haynes, but I don't think that the manager's going to contemplate doing that. I think he's going to stick with Haynes. He's his boy. Beckles is last year's man in some respects, and it's going to be interesting to see whether he does even get a place back in this team at all at this point. But I was all I was expecting, really, and looking forward to seeing Angol play and hearing how he played in this game. So, there we go. It was a very busy game, Ollie.
It was. There was a lot going on. So, yeah, I went down with my brother, dropped Bex at the airport. She's gone on another holiday. So,
needs a holiday after having a holiday with you, Ollie. What does that tell you?
I guess she does, yeah. Went down to Luton. It's not the most glamorous place in the world, and their stadium certainly is old school. So I've never been to Kenilworth Road or whatever. Yeah, is it called Kenilworth Road, or have they got a name?
I think it's called Kenilworth Road, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a old school ground, very old school, and walking up between houses and up steps and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it was interesting to go to. Let's say the start of the game was not really too much to talk about. It was a bit of a poor start, really. Not that it was, I don't know, it was really odd to describe. I was trying to think of this when I was doing the agenda. Like it wasn't like people were like, poor passing and everyone's moaning and groaning. It's just, I don't know, nothing really seemed to start. It was kind of like 2 boxers sparring in terms of how I describe the first part of the game.
Figuring each other out, I suppose, is a good way of describing it in football parlance, isn't it? Sort of having a look at what the opposition have got before you sort of really have a good go at it. But it was interesting. One thing I meant to ask you, Ollie, what did you make of Luton Town? Like, it was weird because we only took like 340 fans, didn't we? Which was quite a poor away attendance for us on a Saturday, I think. But yeah, holidays and cricket season, all that nonsense. But the worst thing about it was you couldn't buy tickets on the day, could you? It was an all-ticket game at the start of the season against Shrewsbury Town. I couldn't really get my head around that.
I think that's to do with Luton and I guess troubles. And there was I did feel a greater police presence than you normally do in an away game.
No, right, okay, weird. I wonder if they do it for all their games at home on a Saturday.
I think it might be. It'd just be just something that they do. I guess no one's really. I guess there's a poor start to the season away at Luton. I guess no one really was up for it, and I guess maybe this is kind of maybe going back down to our normal away attendances. But Shrewsbury Town fans make good voice again. Cool. So I guess the first real part, kind of highlight of the game really was the penalty. So nice link-up play with Doherty and to Angol, who did some nice passing and link-up play. So Waller drives into the box and he gets clipped by the right back. Clear penalty. You could even see from the behaviour of the right back, he put his hands to his head. Worley steps up and scores a decent penalty. It was a very pleasing start to the game.
He's definitely back on penalties. I learned that in the interview post-match when they were talking about it. But he was like, I won the penalty, I'm going to take it. So, he manned up, scored the pen. Obviously, he missed a couple last season, didn't he? So, it's good that he's back on his accuracy thing. And, I noticed that as well about the right back. He knew he'd given a penalty away straight away. There was no trying to con the referee out of it, was there? So, it wasn't like it evened us up for the Doncaster decision because this was also a Stonewall penalty. But it felt like a little bit of maybe luck turning our way in some respects.
Yeah, no, definitely. So the game carried on. We're still in good. We had a good first half, really. So good move forward. Gillard running down the left, into Worley, and then to Angol, who fires a tight angle, but the keeper saves. It was a good strike. And Town were on top. It was just a good first half, really. It was really weird. I sent a message to Lewis Cox on Twitter just to say, did Luton start in a diamond? Because being behind the goal, it was really hard to figure out formations. I just really hate being behind the goal.
Yeah.
And he said, no, they did start on a diamond, but I thought maybe at this point they'd actually moved to a diamond and kind of started to dominate the central midfield. But we were all over them for the first half.
Yeah.
They struggled to get into the game. Their manager was visibly frustrated. You could see him getting really angry with the players that they weren't following his instructions.
The commentary on Radio Shropshire, Mark Elliott and Dunny, very positive about the first half. It was quite quiet. Their commentary in the first 15 minutes, very similar to what you described the game as the sort of game built up. But they were excited about sort of some of the chances we were creating, and it certainly was feeling that vibe that we were on top. And you were starting to think, then is this where the season's going to turn around? We're going to get the first win on the board. But I suppose the first half was sort of good for us, and we played well. But the second half went mental, didn't it?
Yeah, the first half was so frustrating because, that's where I used the term I put in the podcast, sucker punch, because we did start the game so well, and opposite to the Doncaster game, we came out in the second half, and we were sitting deeper, and we weren't pressing as well, and then we were giving away fouls and. Well, free kicks. We're giving away free kicks, or I should say the referee gave free kicks. So the first goal from Luton was from a free kick, and for me it was never ever a foul. It was just a gentle shoulder from Grant. Yeah, it wasn't for me. Grant just used his shoulder, and the plane went down. But taking nothing away from Grant, it was a super free kick right into the corner, and Coleman had no chance.
No, he didn't, and you can't blame the keeper for that one. As I say, it was not the sort of free kick you expect to see someone score in League One. To be honest with you, it was really good.
Yeah, it was, and then not too much happened next until into the 60th 60 minutes, and I could only have what is going to be the most bizarre goal I've ever seen live. Have you seen this on video?
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
It's funny.
So for those exiles who haven't been able to see it, basically the referee, someone was offside, the ball goes through to the keeper, the referee puts his arms out and holds his arms out for a very, very noticeably long time, actually. I noticed at the time he was doing it for a really long time, and he was clearly playing advantage because the keeper had the ball in his hands. And then the keeper just kind of dropped the ball in front of him as he was ready to kick it. And then it took him quite a while to kind of figure out, like maybe 5-6 seconds to figure out what was going on. He didn't really even tackle it, and just kind of dragged the ball over and just shot it into the back of the net. And one thing you didn't see, Glyn, obviously on the video, is he just kind of started almost like just smiling and laughing like to the Shrewsbury fans, as in like, what on earth? I've scored! Hey! It was really funny, and all the Shrewsbury fans obviously just went mad. And we'd kind of regained our lead at this point, and we thought, come on lads, let's hold this on now.
It was a very, very odd goal. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in my time watching Shrewsbury. I think I can remember one goal maybe where a keeper dropped it in sort of open play and one of our players nicked it off him in a very similar manner, but not quite that to do with someone being offside. I can't think of anything like that. I'm sure older fans might remember something and they'll point it out to us on Twitter. But yeah, you got to give Angol credit, haven't you? Really, it was smart thinking. He was obviously very switched on to what was happening in the game. He'd obviously been looking at the referee and knew the situation that we were standing in. So you have to give him a massive amount of credit, really, there, to be honest with you. And nice for him to open his account. I'm sure he'd like to score better goals or more exciting goals, not quite as random goals, but they all count, don't they? And at that point, we were back level and you started to think it was going to be fine. But yeah, it wasn't to be, unfortunately.
Then there was a long busting run from Grant. I didn't realise he had that kind of pace. And he had a decent effort at a goal. At this point, the Shrewsbury fans were, you can imagine, putting a bit of pressure on the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Giving him a lot of stick. And every time he did anything, putting pressure on him and kind of jeering him. So then we had a couple of efforts at goal then. And Bolton had a header from a corner as well. After the Grant effort went wide. Quite poor goalkeeping, actually, to give away a corner. And then the game was kind of just kind of went into kind of three standout moments. So this was a poor goal to give a concede. So essentially, counter attack by Luton, dominated by Stacey. The ball moves around. Cut a long story short, he basically finds himself in the box and shoots. He was left unmarked. Gilead should have tracked him. Actually had a bit of a discussion with Mark Elliott on his view of this goal. And yeah, we both kind of agreed that Gilead was at fault. I also think that where Haynes ran out of position, well, to support a gap and fill a hole left by where Doherty or Lawrence should have been. I think there should have been one midfielder in that kind of space. So he came out, but yeah, Gilead was nowhere to be seen. And Stacey, who's a good player, just stroked the ball into the back of net. Really nice finish. And I think it was Gilead who was actually was referring to in his post-match comments, because it was very, very poor goal to concede. And again, down the left-hand side, Glyn.
Yeah, I would agree with all that, having watched it on a replay, and obviously I didn't see the wider context. But interestingly, when the goal goes in, Doherty's miles up the pitch, and he turns around when they've scored, and he starts shouting at someone up the pitch. So it must either be, I don't know, he could be shouting at Angle, maybe. Did Angle give the ball away for the counter? I don't know, but it was noticeable that he was miles away from the play, whereas I believe Grant was on the edge of the box, and I think that Laurent was.
Yeah, Grant was on the edge, and Laurent was really,
Yeah, but
yes.
Grant, Doxy wasn't. So maybe they don't, all three of them need to be back, but it certainly looked like he was the one, potentially on that left-hand side cover that had been caught out a little bit as well. But I would say, we've talked about defensive solidity and how well they've been doing. That was definitely questions for me in terms of the way they defended that goal. But, it was the only goal in this game that you could sort of blame the defence for. The other two were a bit more different, weren't they? But, left side, something to keep an eye on, like we've been saying. So, not ideal. And I don't know, you were there, Ollie, when it went 2-2. I guess the whole vibe of the game changed and the sort of momentum was with Luton then, and we were sort of hanging on by the sounds of it. No?
Yes and no. I didn't feel like that at the time. I didn't feel like we were, because obviously the keeper had made his mistakes. We felt like we had something there. And, they weren't, throughout the whole game, Luton didn't impress me. Saw they had a few tidy players. They brought on Collins at half time because the strikers weren't really doing anything. But Luton didn't overly impress me. I didn't see anything. We lost them then, Ollie. Yeah, that's the thing that's so frustrating. Doncaster looked like a good side, but Luton, like a lot of teams, I get a bit frustrated when the media go, "Oh yeah, League Two team, they're going to storm it," like Portsmouth was supposed to storm the league last year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. And I don't think that they were that impressive. Maybe I just saw them on a bit of a bad day or whatever. I didn't think they were amazing. I thought that we'd get a draw at this point. But then, unfortunately, Sadler gives away a really poor foul. This definitely was a foul. And then, they take a free kick, and the ball goes through our wall and deflected in. So I don't know who was at fault here. But there's definitely something for ASCII to work on here with in terms of individual errors. Individual errors are the ones that seem to be causing us the trouble at the moment, because, it's obviously some of the goals. Like you could say that the goal from Stacey is about structural defensive positioning and team players getting used to each other. Obviously, we've had a few mistakes where we had Bolton and Coleman at Burton. We had obviously Gilead in this game. So yeah, it's frustrating that we're giving these kind of goals away, and then Sadler to give away a bad foul there, and again we sucker punched them. We just gave them we gifted them the goals.
A little bit naive.
There's nothing else to say.
Do you think all these individual mistakes are individual mistakes, but sometimes it seems like there's a little naivety in the way they're trying to play, or some of the fouls we're giving away?
I think Sadler just rushed in for a tackle and player stood still, and it was just a mistake. It was a simple mistake, it's not like Sadler to make these kind of mistakes, is it? And then to make things even worse, you can imagine how sick all the home fans are feeling this when Waterfall gives away a penalty. Absolutely blatant penalty, even from the other end of the pitch you could see it's a penalty, and then Coleman did really well to save, and I think it's just worth noting that Coleman was really good in this game, and he's really kind of after a few shaky shots and a few fans being a bit concerned about him, no one's talking about him anymore at all.
No, he's had a good week, hasn't he, in general, from the two games, from what I can make out. But yeah, I mean, bloody hell, Waterfall, it was a very lazy tackle, to be honest with you. He sort of just hung a foot in there, gave the the attacker enough to just sort of go over, and then sort of threw his hands up in the air. I mean, it was a bit of a weird one watching it, to be honest with you. And I say, again, I can't judge Waterfall too much because I've only seen him on the old iFollow once, but I'm going to be really interested to see how he works. So I've heard a lot of good reports about him, to be fair. So
yeah, he's been good.
All players give pens away, don't they, to be fair, so maybe it's a bit harsh to judge him on just
even players like Granderson gave away penalties.
Get on with you. You're still training with the club. Yes, there we go. So I suppose you want me to go to your new feature, Ollie. Who was your standout player for Luton?
Stacey, the right back.
Stacey,
he was really solid. Yeah. So there's the guy who does the summaries of the XG, who kind of helped me kind of get into XG. A guy called Ollie Walker. He's a big Luton fan, and I had a little short discussion with him and a couple of Luton fans before the game, and they kind of highlighted Stacey as a good player. Apparently the baggies are tracking him. And he looks like a real player. He looks a really, really solid player. So he's one to look out for. So he was my standout player from Luton.
The other one I was going to ask you about Luton players was old James Collins, because he came on in the second half, didn't he? Did he miss? Was he him that had the penalty saved?
I don't believe so. I don't
fine.
think it was him, and he was pretty non-existent.
Yeah, I thought they were going to get a penalty. Well, when they got the penalty, I thought just be typical for an ex-Shrewsbury Town player to step up and score it, but it wasn't to be, was it? But as I say, I heard from what I can make out, he had quite a good reception at one point when he ran out to warm us a sub.
Yeah, he did. He got a good one. There's a couple of chances about him scored in the Arsenal net, and a good kind of. But he did. He was typical kind of Collins, a bit slow, and didn't really do anything. So, he's a good League 2 He's a good League 2 striker. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good League 2 striker. He's not. He'll
score more goals in League 1 than the shop does this season. I'd put a lot of money on that. But there we go. So what was your top three, Ollie?
I went for Coleman. In goal, I went for Bolton second because even though I was struggling a little bit because the second half kind of dampened my feeling. Bolton for me because he didn't make any mistakes and he was solid. And then I went Worley third because he was just probably almost. I think everyone else I could kind of say they made some kind of mistake. Waterfall gave away the penalty. Sadler gave away with free kicks. Grant was giving away free kicks. Doherty and Laurent giving away free kicks and didn't really play superbly well. Haynes obviously fought a bit with Juliet as well. So I kind of didn't really leave me much else to go for.
Fair enough. And you did the 3-word match report again this week, didn't you, Ollie? Now we're back to normal Salopcast.
Normal service is back. Glyn is back. 3-word match report is back. And it's fair to say that my phone was going mental after I posted this. There's 83 comments online, but unfortunately, because of the rules for the group, I had to delete a few.
Sweary.
Sweary. So I think it's fair to say that there's, I wouldn't say they're two equal camps, but there's definitely two camps among the Shrewsbury Town fans. So, defensive. So Joshua Owen with defensive lapsed again. Paul Turner with clock is ticking. Then someone was saying happy, then sad. Cannot win. Mark Jones of absolute relegation fodder.
God.
But then on the other side, Andy Worley with 3 points lost. Alex Middleton need a drink. So it's interesting. But then a lot of these kind of were people who weren't at the game.
Yes.
Able to kind of and then you get someone who was at the game, so A Plymouth saying it's coming home, in terms of the 3 points. Anthony Lamb, who I know would have watched on iFollow from North America, said we threw that one away. So, yeah, as I said in the other games, Glyn, there's definitely a lot more patience and a lot more optimism from those who have been at the games. But we'll come on to a bit of a summary of kind of overall performances in a second.
Yeah, we'll go through John Askey's comments on the game because I felt they were very interesting as well. But we're going to have a little section, aren't we, in a minute, just talking about these first 6 games and this run of no wins. But we'll come to that in a minute and the John Askey sort of moment that we're in at the moment. But yeah, his comments were dead interesting, weren't they, in some respects?
Yeah, it wasn't just his comments.
Yeah.
So, as I said, his demeanour. So I'll be honest, I've been hesitant to watch the post matches because he gives nothing away. Now that could be a positive or a negative, depends which way you want to view it. But he was clearly agitated watching this, and it's always good to watch, not just listen, because you could see from his mannerisms he was disappointed. So it's disappointing. We're given a golden opportunity to take 3 points. He's not happy. He repeated. Said we were. This is quite an interesting line. We were hoping we were going to win today rather than playing to win. We said we switched off. We gave away too many free kicks, and we're getting too deep. Though we did make a point that some of them were a little bit soft. Second half not good enough. We can't have players switching off like that, not tracking back. So clearly referring to Gilead there. He was angry, and he was definitely the most animated I've seen him.
Good.
He's definitely pissed off and not happy with some players. So I expect some changes for Tuesday, and I also expect some changes for your game back
next Saturday.
Yeah, this Saturday coming.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because it's the first interview where I think there's been a sort of a more passionate explanation of what's gone on in the game to come out, I suppose, so far. He's been very reserved and mellow about the game so far, hasn't he? And it's quite interesting that he's suddenly changed like that. I don't think he's under any pressure from the football club whatsoever, and nor should he be six games in. But you don't like to be under pressure by any fans, and there certainly is an element of our fan base that are starting to wonder whether he's out of his depth or he's a bit naive.
No, it's not even to start. It's not starting, Glyn.
Yeah.
It came straight away after the first game.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I've been away, so I can't quite judge what it's been like other than sort of.
But you've seen it online, haven't you? There's been a lot of
yes.
knee-jerk reactions to, not getting all 3 points straight away, which obviously we want to win. While I'm been giving him a little bit more benefit of doubt and a bit more time,
yes.
clearly not happy we're not winning games.
But I think you're definitely right between the mix of people who've been to the games and seen the performance and us, majority maybe, of fans that don't go to every game and are judging it on the run we're on. And it is
go to away games.
Yeah, exactly.
The away games is different. There's this clear divide. So when after the Charlton game, I just got back from America, just driven back from Heathrow, and I was listening to the game and I was on Facebook at the same time, and it was really funny. There was like real anger and frustration on social media as soon as the game finished. And then as as the fans at the game, turned on their phones, got on the trains, was in the car, and the coaches, their feedback started coming on. There was a different mix, a different appreciation of we should have got a point there. We were robbed at the last minute, and again on against Doncaster as well. I thought that because a lot of more people watched the game, there was a bit more positive. So it's interesting, isn't it? How quickly fans react to, and Askey himself said this, because obviously the media were going to ask him after the Blackpool game about the fans because they booed him and there was chanting if you don't know what you're doing, so they were going to ask him questions on that, and he was quite calm, actually, quite fair to play to him. He said fans have the right basically to kind of have their opinion, and he doesn't really surprised in the kind of the world that we live in today. So there he's quite good. Sometimes it's not the trouble I find with Askey is what he says is actually quite good. It's just sometimes how he delivers it.
I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? Because football is a results business, unfortunately, and as I say, without the lack of seeing all these performances, people are starting to judge it on the results business. And I thought it was worth mentioning these two stats, really, because some people are saying, people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater and overreacting. And at no point in this podcast, and probably not for a while yet, would I be saying, Askey out. It's way too early to make that judgment, right? But I can understand why people are being negative. We've not won in 6 games. It is the equal worst start to any Shrewsbury Town manager's career at this football club, right? Paul Simpson also didn't win his first 6 games, and he won the 7th. So, if we don't beat Man City's, youth team on Tuesday night, then John Askey's going to be the worst Shrewsbury Town manager in terms of his start at this football club, which is not a great place for a football manager to be. And in this modern day of people looking at these sorts of things, you do understand why people are being frustrated. But another thing people have been saying all week, I found, is, well, we shouldn't worry about it. Fred Davis lost the first, whatever it was, 5 games of the season, and when we got promoted to the Championship. That's fine. But for every statistic like that, you could also say that the last time we got relegated out of League One, we had 7 points after this many games. Now we've got 2. So I can understand why any fan who's got a view of John Askey, whether it's let's give him time or I'm already not convinced he's the man, there's a stat you can pick from any corner. Do you know what I mean? You can justify your viewpoint whatever you want. At the end of the day, most people are taking a side on this, and I think a majority of fans are ready to give him time. I'm not making out like it's 50-50. It's nowhere near that. But the fans that have already gone to the side of I'm not convinced are basing it on results. That's all they can base it on. And at the end of the day, if he can't quite find that magic formula in the next few games, more people will join that side of it. And I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope we get a win this week, 2 wins this week, and we can go on and look at how this season can develop. But at the moment, there is a balance, isn't there?
Yeah, well, I've done a bit of prep for this section, Glyn. I knew we were going to have this exact discussion. Yeah. There's a question for you. There's a question for you then, Glyn. Can you ignore performances, or should you ignore performances?
It's tricky, isn't it? It is tricky. What if we outplay the Man City youth team and Bristol City and lose both those games this week? He's
Bristol
not in
Rovers,
any better position for having... Yeah, sorry, Bristol Rovers. We wouldn't be in any better position with our fans for having done that, even if 6,000-7,000 of them saw them outplay Bristol Rovers and lose again. At the end of the day, you'd start to have to try and find why it is we're playing so well and not winning, because there will be some reason for it.
But then this is so early. So, funnily enough, I thought I'd have gone on. So I've got some pros and cons, which I'll come on to in a second. But a team that did really well last season, and a team I'm sure you'll be aware of, where you would say had a great season, is Plymouth. Plymouth's last season, their start of the season was horrendous. And it's actually, August was bad. September was even worse. So they lost to Peterborough. They got thrashed 5-0 by Bristol City. They lost to Plymouth. They drew against Chelsea under 21s. They got a point against Southend. They lost 4-0 to Scunthorpe. Then going in September, they only got a point away at Bury, and they lost all their other games, including losing to MK Dons and Walsall. But they still had a fantastic season. So I think and also they're a good team. They've kept a lot of the players together, and also their manager, and they've got 2 points as same as Shrewsbury. So I think that if the performances weren't good, I would be very concerned. The performances are good, and I want us to come on to the players in a minute. So we had a good question from the D3D4 podcast. But yeah, I don't know. So I think the performances need to be taken into consideration when they're kind of judging, how good the manager's been doing so far.
I do. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the next game isn't that. You don't want performance. All you need to do is get a Shrewsbury Town team to beat a Man City youth team. It'd be
a rubbish performance. Yeah, rubbish performance
on that. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah,
you just grind out that result. Your professional footballers playing against a bunch of kids. If you can't do it then maybe that game's actually going to throw up more problems for us than we thought it might be.
I wouldn't
checker trade game. It's not vitally important to the season.
I don't care about the checker trade.
Certainly very important. Sorry, yeah, no one cares about it, but it's important to Askey at the moment.
It's important to Askey, but I wouldn't use it in a case for sacking him or anything like that. And just to put it into context, I wouldn't take that. But so in terms of just kind of this discussion, Glyn, I've got a few pros and cons just to kind of share my thoughts. So I'll go with the negatives first. So clearly we haven't won a game, and there's a lack of goals. And there's defences errors, and there's also this seems to be an anti-Hurst kind of player kind of sentiment going through in terms of the transfer dealings. I'm a bit concerned about sometimes his dealing with the media, and I don't know. Sometimes I worry whether he's this kind of like old school kind of manager, where Paul Hurst and the Gareth Southgate is a bit more of your modern manager. But then at the same time, to give him some positives, I'd say that the majority of the signings have been really good. I think the players he signed look really, really encouraging. My brother went to the first game of the season at home and came to Luton with me, and he said that the team has improved dramatically in that time. So the team's definitely improving. So there's been narrow draws, which we should have won. And then obviously we should have got a point away at Charlton. The XG is positive. Until Luton, we weren't really conceding too many. We've had a limited amount of time with the squad, so he's got time to work with the players. So that's a bit of it's a positive in the sense that he hasn't, you can't judge him too much because he hasn't had that much time. And finally, I think we're playing good attacking, passing football. So yeah, I don't know, quite a few things I've thrown at you there, Glyn. What's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with everything you're saying, Ollie, and I think that we're on the same page in some respects. What my point I'm trying to make is that it's a results business, and people will fall one way or the other and say, look, at the end of the day, people can or can't deal with all those points you've just made. They'll fall on one side or the other with a manager. It doesn't matter whether it's ASCII, it's any manager. Do you know what I mean? That people will take a judgment on that manager. And
it's a bit quick, though, isn't it? But people are saying that she should have been sacked after 3 games. That's
ridiculous.
Just far too early.
I completely agree with you. And you also get a lot of nonsense in the mix. People are saying he doesn't clap the fans, where it's been proved that he has been clapping the fans. And so there's this then thing that builds up with some fans who misunderstand that, and it builds up negativity. But at the end of the day, I think we're on the same page. There is a lot of positives. There's quite a lot of negatives in terms of where we are at the moment, and in terms of our league position and what's gone on. And It's at a point where if you haven't won 6 games, it could go either way now. We're not going to sit here and say all those positives will now develop into massive positives and will run up the league like Plymouth did. They went unbeaten for 27 games. It'd be unlikely if we went unbeaten for 27 games. Let's be honest about it. But at the end of the day, I'm not sitting here saying all the negatives and all the problems and where we are in the league is what's going to be for the rest of the season. It could go either way. But we can't discount that ASCII could turn out to be a genius, and we can't turn out that ASCII might be a little bit out of his depth. And there's no reason why we can't question both sides of that. And I'm not saying he should go now, and I won't be judging this season until at least 10 games, and even maybe more than that this season, because I missed the first few, and also we are going to give them a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt because the team came together late. So I'm not overly panicking yet, but I'm not burying my head in the sand and saying everything will be fine. I'm open-minded as to where this season could go, and you kind of got to be at this stage, haven't you, really?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I want us to talk about reviewer signings, but I think it's better to do that when you've seen them. So we'll part the question from the D3, D4 question. Yeah, and we can have that discussion when you've seen them, because obviously I've seen them quite a few times now. But yeah, let's have that. So, I think you're right, Glyn. It's been an interesting season, plenty of talking points. And it's I left Luton a little bit disheartened, but like all good football fans, and just looking forward to the next game again now.
Good stuff. Well, there we go. We'll leave it, and I think whether we'll be revisiting a lot of these points, I suspect, next week, because we've got 2 games coming up, and there'll be a lot more talking points. But we'll leave the sort of match review and where ASCII is at the moment, and we'll just do a bit of Salop news and predictions to wrap the podcast up.
Morris to Worley on the right-hand side, ball in towards the far post, towards Humphries. Payne scores! He's done it again! Stefan Payne!
So Salop news. This week Sam Jones has gone out on loan to Cheltenham Town for the. I think it was till January, I'm not too sure, can't remember now, but another one of the sort of Hurst signings at the sort of latter part of his career that's sort of not going to get any football here this season, so might as well go out on loan. And on his debut, came off the bench and scored a goal. So it's interesting how many are sort of starting to go out on loan. And obviously, while I was away, I think you briefly mentioned last week, Ollie, that ASCII has also said that he wants to get Ganua and Issa out on loan as well. So we're going to have sort of a small army of midfielders out on loan at other clubs soon, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, trying to get players out on loan and getting them some games. Obviously, also we need to have development players on the bench. So I don't think it's not a surprise that Sam Jones has gone out on loan to League Two.
No, I think it's.
I think he was probably one of Hurst's poor signings.
Yeah, he didn't really do too much, did he, towards the end of last season? Certainly not as much as Issa, and it didn't really sort of strike a chord with the fans quite as much as Issa did. And I think fans will be more disappointed to see Issa leave. But from everything I've read, ASCII is looking to bring Issa back at some point. So who knows what will happen with that? But an interesting game to play as we go forward on, and I think we'll track it on the podcast, is will our midfielders that we've sent out on loan score more goals than the midfielders that are actually at the club? Because it'll be about the same amount of players. And at the moment it's 2-2, isn't it? Because Bryn Morris is out on loan for I can't remember, it's Wickham? I can't remember where he went, but he's
gone to Wickham. Yeah, he's gone to Wickham.
Yeah, Sam Jones has scored a goal as well, but Wally's obviously got 2, so it's 2-2 at the moment. We'll keep an eye on that.
But you're not going to put any weighting in for League Two?
Well, yeah, we'll have to see, won't we? It could be like 0.5 a goal for League Two. We'll see how that goes.
It's an interesting one to track.
Yeah, it certainly feels like maybe the more attacking midfielders are the ones we've sent out on loan, but there we go, we'll have to see. And the only other thing in terms of Salop news, in terms of potentially some positivity, is Ryan Woods finally joined Stoke in the week, didn't he? And it's a loan move now with the sort of deal being done in January, which is what a lot of clubs are doing at the moment, isn't it, to get around that early transfer window?
Yeah, it's a cheeky way of extending the transfer window, isn't it?
Yeah, which works well. So we obviously know in January at some point there's going to be a big wad of cash going between the two clubs, and we'll be creaming our sort of profit off the top of that. So the January transfer window, there should be a bit of bit more money.
Yeah, well, we don't actually get the money, do we? That's the thing. It gets drip fed, so everything's paid in instalments these days. So we'll get, again, same with Connor Goldson and obviously Nolan and all this, everyone that kind of moves on, all that. It's all feed. But yeah, the income column for the next few years is certainly be healthy, because I imagine he'll sign a multiple-year deal at Stoke, so we'll get that money dripping in over the length of that contract.
Yeah, it's good. And a good move for Woodsy as well, I think, in some respects.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a sort of sideways move in terms of league position, but you maybe have to fancy Stoke to go up a little bit more than Brentford, wouldn't you? So hopefully he'll be joining Connor playing in a Premiership in a relevant country at some point soon. So there we go. That was all it's Salop news. Really, we've got the Checker Trade game coming up this weekend. It's Man City's.
Are you going?
Which we're not too bothered about. And my balls going to that. No, back to boycott. Back to boycott, mate. Back to boycott until we get to the final again. But one thing I was going to say is, what would you do the team? But I don't really think it's worth talking about Ollie, because Christ knows what could happen. Really, he could play a strong team. There's rules that he's got to stick with. So, we'll just reflect on that next week when we get back to the podcast, won't we? But the next big game really is Bristol Rovers at home next Saturday, and lots of interesting elements to do with that. Obviously, we've got the return of Alex Rodman and Steph Payne, so that could make the game a little bit more spicy for Askey, who obviously are players that went. Obviously, Rodman didn't stay and didn't sign a contract, so that was obviously nothing to do with Askey, really, but Payne was one where potentially we could have kept him. But Bristol Rovers have started very poorly as well. They're actually only 2 places above us, and they've only got 3 points. Obviously, we've got 2. They lost to Peterborough, Accrington, Southend and Portsmouth, so a bit of a mix and match in terms of the teams they lost to. But they beat Wickham, who obviously have only just come up and have not started brilliantly themselves. But unlike us, they did win their cup game. So they've won 2 from 4. They've won 2 from 6, but they've already lost 4 games. So yeah, a bit of a tricky game coming up. I don't know. It's obviously going to be interesting to see how it goes. What kind of prediction are you going for, Ollie? This is our first prediction of the season, we should say.
It is
the competition starts now. Yeah. Yeah,
so the competition starts now. I guess as I won last year, I should go first. And
I'm
going to go 2-1 to Shrewsbury Town.
Good, that would be helpful. I don't know. I really, really want us to win. But without having seen us and seen these performances that I think make you a little bit more positive, I think we might. Because they're obviously going to be desperate for a win as well. This is not a team coming here that are, could afford to lose a game, really. They're struggling down the bottom. So I think it might end up being, having sort of seen what happened at Luton, 2-2. We might nick it 3-2. It might be a game like that. So I'll go 2-2, Ollie.
Cool. So a point for you're going for a point, so it'd be 3 points this season. But I know. I think we can get a win, and hopefully being at home. Obviously, we've had 2 away games now. So it'd be nice to be back at home.
And in terms of being back, Ollie, the podcast is back now. We'll be back to Sunday. Well, it's Monday night now because obviously it was a bank holiday this weekend, but there's no more bank holidays, is there? So we'll be back to recording Sunday nights and getting these podcasts out Monday morning. And we should really reflect and say thank you to the Town fans for what they've done in terms of supporting the podcast earlier this season, because the podcast grew exponentially last season, didn't it, Ollie, in terms of the Town doing well. I think everyone was really excited and wanted to hear about how we were doing, and we were finding that sort of listener growth had gone up. But we've noticed at the start of this season, we've been doing 500, and in fact one of the episodes has done 700-800 listens, I think, already. So Town fans are definitely engaging with the podcast again, and sort of stick with it and send us your thoughts on Twitter and the Facebook page. And we do read a lot of social media stuff, don't we, for research for this podcast, Ollie. So, anything that's out there, we try and reflect, don't we? So, yeah, thanks for your support this season so far.
Yeah, cheers guys, thanks very much for all the messages, and we're kind of back to normal now, so I'm sure we'll be asking people questions, and there's been so much to cover for this podcast. We could have gone on for even longer, so
we could.
We'll be back to normal now, asking questions, and when we have some single game weeks as well, we'll maybe do some bits and pieces as well. And we still need to have a big discussion about kind of a bit about the Hurst legacy in the transfer window as well, Glyn, so we've got to kind of get stuck into as well.
Good stuff. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully it was entertaining, and we'll catch you next week.
Cheers, guys.